This episode of Raoul's Adventures in Crypto is sponsored by the Token 2049 Blockchain Conference. Join over 10,000 attendees for this year's biggest crypto event at Token 2049 Singapore on the 13th and 14th of September. Balaji Srinivasan, Arthur Hayes, Tyler and Cameron Winklevoss, and over 200 others will hit the stage, joining the industry's most influential for an unforgettable experience ahead of the iconic Formula One Grand Prix race weekend. Singapore will transform into a crypto hub for a week from the 11th to the 17th of September with over 300 side events that make for unparalleled networking opportunities. Builders and investors at the bleeding edge of innovation will drive an agenda that covers the ever-evolving regulatory landscape, the convergence of crypto and AI, Web3 gaming, NFTs in the Metaverse, DeFi, scalability, interoperability, and much more. To get 65% off the regular ticket prices, go to t2049.co/realvision. That's t2049.co/realvision and use code realvision, or click on the link in the description below.
It's a new design language, actually, almost. We're not taking cues from something which has happened before. Welcome once again to this special edition of Adventures in Crypto with me, Tareq Nazlawy. I am the president of a company called Science Magic Studios. We use emerging technology like blockchain and Web3 to help deepen connections between brands and people. Now, as I'm coming accustomed to saying now at the beginning of these episodes, you'll probably notice that I'm not actually Raoul Pal. Raoul is a good friend and a colleague as well. He's one of the co-founders of SMS. And for the month of August, he's given me the privilege of taking you on a very special tour on all things about brands and Web3. This is a topic which is talked about a lot. Brands and their communities being one of the big opportunities for adoption in the space. And we've seen a lot of exciting moves in the last year or two. But we also can see that it's not a cakewalk to get it right. So our job this month is to get under the hood into the why, the what, and the how of brands investing in the space with the people who are actually driving it behind the scenes. And with that, it is a very special privilege to welcome our guest today, Ben Blamoutier. I hope I'm saying that correctly, Ben. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you. Exactly, Blamoutier. As you can hear, I'm French. So hi, everyone, and thank you for the invitation.
Now, as our viewers will be able to tell by now, Ben, you are with Lacoste, one of the brands that has been very active and committed in the Web3 space for the last 12 months. And your role at Lacoste is the VP of Global Brand and Consumer Experience, right? So if I've got that right, why don't you bring us in a little bit to what a day in the life looks like for the VP of Global Brand and Consumer Experience at Lacoste?
It's a lovely and nice day every week. Have a chance to lead. At Lacoste, I joined Lacoste 3 years ago, more than 3 years ago right now. And my mission is to translate our brand storytelling, our collections, our fashion pieces into a customer experience. So my job is to connect with communities in the most elevated way that the teams can do, because we have a strong premiumization strategy at Lacoste, and we connect with our communities in many touch points. And this is my mission, to talk with communities around social media, around Web3 also, which is a kind of new social media for us, around CRM also and customer engagement, and then to propose the best customer experience in our stores, online stores, with strong digital branding initiatives on our e-com, and also in retail around our flagships, but also regular stores and outlets.
Wow. Okay. So that is a lot, right? I mean, we can see now sort of the sub elements of what makes up the title. One of the things in speaking to leaders inside industry and brands driving this thing, is always interesting to understand what role are they playing in the organization, and how is the Web3 opportunity clustered with other things. And what's very interesting about your current role is you're actually responsible for pretty much the consumer experience at every touch point that Lacoste has to offer. And Web3 is now being considered one new medium within that array of things that you've got going on. Is that right? So you're also responsible for all things related to loyalty, for example.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, when before the Web3 hype and the Web3 trend that occurred like in second semester of 2021, we already started at Lacoste to to design and to implement a strategy of connection with the communities, because we created a new cycle around the brand in 2020, where we wrote this new brand mission, which was liberate movement and connect to all cultures, because we are really lucky at Lacoste to have a brand which is really relevant to many cultures, like classic cultures, fashion cultures, street cultures. We have many kinds of different customers that meet each other only in one place, a Lacoste store. And this is something we are really lucky about. And we began to write a new kind of customer experience where we wanted to connect with these communities. So we liberate our publishing strategy on social media. We designed a new loyalty program, but we wanted also to have new kinds of relationships with our communities, like not only transactional relationships, but also to build like new kinds of interactions with our communities and audiences. And the Web3 was for us a strong opportunity to liberate the creativity of our customers, to make them also entering in a more conversational experience with the brand, and also to make them play with us. And this is why Web3 for Lacoste was not only an opportunity to do a nice PR operation or a nice one-shot move. For us, it was really, really relevant in the way we wanted to build more horizontal relationships, more horizontal connections with our community. So this is why, for us, it's not only something we want to test, this is something we want to succeed, and we want to implement it at scale in our global customer experience. It's going to take time, for sure, but we think that in the next decade, the basis of new loyalty programs will be a balance between a reward model, because you are loyal in a transactional way to the brand, but also balance with a more experiential, a more conversational, a more creative way of rewarding people because they are talented and they are feeding the brand with their creativity. And this is what we want to do at Lacoste.
Wow. Then in that little intro there, you have given so many hooks that we can talk about, as opposed to like the why and the what, and how that's manifested also with your program, the Underwater program, which we're going to talk more and more about. Now, before I get too excited and dive straight into that, just tell us, how does someone end up doing a role like this, which includes a Web3 element at a brand like Lacoste? Give us a bit of a background on your career and the winding path towards this moment.
Yeah, so my background, I started like 13 years ago at VP, Vente Privée, which is one of the major pure player in Europe. It's flash sales website, which is doing right now, I think, 3 or 4 billion euros turnover. So I started my career at VP, and I had so different jobs around, first around B2B marketing, so building relationships, marketing relationships with all the brands who are working with this company. Then I worked on digital innovation, working also on startup programs also for VP at Station F, which is a big startup place in Paris. That you see.
I've spent a lot of time down there in my time with Adidas, actually. Yes, I did. Yes. One of my favorite, 2018, 2019. It's a fantastic environment.
Yeah, exactly. With full of creativity, of energy, and it's a really, really great place in Paris. And then I was marketing director for VP. So working on a classic function of CMO for a pure player, working on around acquisition, CRM, category management, web design, custom personalization, data, etc. And I joined Lacoste 3 years ago to work on the customer experience, or to make it also more digital, because Lacoste was, I think, a really strong company in the e-com with a good digital footprint. And then my mission was also to make the customer maybe more at the center of the experience with a better focus also on how we can build like more omni-channel relationships with our customer in an elevated way, because we are not only building connections with people in the experience, we want also to do them in the most relevant and elevated way for the brand, because more and more this brand is more and more premium, and we are investing a lot also in the brand. So we want that all that we do in the customer experience seems like the most elevated way that we can do. So this is my background, and then also really into the innovation also in digital innovation, social media, loyalty. So this is my big focus. I'm doing also on both professional and personal life. So Web3 was quite natural for me, because maybe this was the next step for this kind of topics. So when the Web3 trend started for brands, this was really interesting for me to enter it, to learn a lot, because I'm not a Web3 native guy, absolutely not. And I entered this space with a lot of humility, because I learned a lot around blockchain, around crypto, around NFTs. And I think that what we try to do at Lacoste is to find how we can build on long term around these trends, and not only using them for a short term marketing action. And I think the learning phase is now over, and we started building something, I think, long term and organic.
Hey everyone, Rails Venture Crypto, it's really my flagship show. It's where I interview the best guests in the world, people you never get on another show. I think it's the best show in macro, crypto, and Web3 combined. In fact, that's what it does. It covers everything. But really, it's all about the revolution in Web3 and crypto. And I'd love it if you got it every week in your inbox. All you have to do is just click on the link below, pop in your email address, and you'll get notified every time it comes out. And you don't miss anything as you take my journey into the exciting new world of crypto and Web3. Thanks.
It's fascinating to hear you join the dots, because, there is no single story about how people end up, grabbing this technology and putting it to work. And so having a background in, pretty hardcore pure play e-commerce on the marketing side, and then bridging that with this innovation chapter that you've had, which seems to be very much, a red thread perhaps throughout your career as well. Those two things just led you to pick up Web3 as, it's not like we weren't doing marketing before, right? Like we were always doing marketing, but now the new medium just felt like an opportunity to amplify or to accelerate this mission that you've been on at Lacoste around what you said, premiumization, having a horizontal relationship where we're co-creating with consumers. And one really key word that you used was play as well, right? The idea that a brand is actually in some form, not just about product and experience, but it's also in some form entertainment. And the idea that you're creating new ways to interact just makes a ton of sense when the competition for attention is very content heavy, gaming worlds, a lot of mass media content going on out there. So that seems like a very natural thing to explore for somebody with your background. You've been in the space for a year. Was it something that came bottom up in the organization? Did it come, top down from the board? Was it something that you yourself said, you know what, if this is my role and my mission, we kind of really have to look at this technology. Let me strike up a team or whatever. What was the genesis? What was the moment of spark?
It was in October or November 2021, when we saw the first moves of brands around NFTs. So I was obviously aware about blockchain, crypto for years. I was at Station F in Paris, so a lot of startups were working around blockchain. So I was quite into it. But in late 2021, for the first time, Nike bought Artifact. Adidas created the Into the Metaverse program. Facebook became Meta. It was like a buzzword. And for us, we wanted to see not how we can participate to the buzz, but how we can take maybe the best of this new move, because the claim was it was Web3. So if it's Web3, it's not Web2 anymore. So what was the difference? And when we looked around the philosophy, the Web3 philosophy, what was interesting for Lacoste was first the philosophy of decentralization, how we can build with a community, how we can maybe create more horizontal links with this community. And this was this had a lot of sense for the brand, because in our global strategy, this is what we wanted to do. The technology also was really interesting for us because it was a way to build a new reward model also, like to reward guys who are like entrepreneurs, who want to participate, to build with us and to reward them through the technology. And this was really interesting. And also the amplification, because you used this word a few minutes ago, and I think this is maybe the most important word to qualify Web3. Web3 didn't invent marketing. We were using social media for years. We were doing reveal, advertising, creating connections, CRM, but the Web3 created amplification in the way all brands have equity, all brands have a narrative, but Web3 allows brands to make people play with the narrative, to make people enter in a virtual way into the narrative by playing with it. And also, Web3 allows communities to modify, to create, to work around with the narrative of a brand. And this is something we wanted to test, to discover like new playgrounds. And this is what we started to do by launching the Underwater project, to see what is underwater when the crocodile is underwater. Because everyone knows what is above the surface. But what we wanted to do with the Web3 is to get deep dive underwater and to discover a new world with our community.
That's actually, I mean, a great segue as well. So for anybody who's watching who hasn't come across Lacoste's program, which I think it was June 22, right, that you guys launched the Genesis token of that. And we'll definitely talk. Like, this has been a moving thing with several phases in the last year or so. But just the name of it, Underwater, which is represented as UNDW with a 3. Can you just give us an insight into how underwater has been kind of codified in those letters in that number 3? Why under W3 to represent underwater?
It was for us because we wanted two things. To be really honest, there was like a little trend of in Web3, and maybe brands do this trend in a steely way, or maybe not in the most like elegant way, but to contract the world and to put a 3 to make like a bit like we are Web3 native, to be honest. And also it was also a way for us to have like a bit like maybe a more modern world. But to be honest, if I started the project again today, I think I will write it underwater in all the letters, because I think the narrative we created around how we can create a journey in like the invisible side of the brand, deep dive, hidden underwater, I think this is sufficient enough, and we do not need to play with letters to tell this story.
I really appreciate you. I mean, firstly, everybody who's watching, I mean, this is the kind of stuff that we get to here. It's just like, the good, the bad, and the ugly. What would we do differently? What would we do the same? We've seen a lot of 3s in names for sure. But actually the philosophy behind the name of, the Lacoste crocodile, which I think, the more I've dug into it, the more I understand the background behind the crocodile itself, and that becoming the emblem of the company. but below the waterline is where the action is. That's where you really live. That's like above the water is what everybody else sees. As part of this community, you get to see below the waterline. That's fantastic. So why don't we talk a little bit about that moment, right? Your brand's first entry into the space. What was the Genesis Pass? How many were there? What was the sell, if you like, to get people involved in this thing? How did you price it? Like, what was the thinking behind the launch of the Genesis collection?
But what we wanted to do at the beginning is to launch the brand in Web3 space. And for now, when we take a look back, seems easy, and what I'm going to say seems obvious. But a year ago, this was really strong moves for a brand like Lacoste. First, we created our Discord, and we discovered this new social media, this new social network, which was quite surprising for us because we created a Discord. We announced that the brand was entering the space, and in like 2 days, we had like 100,000 people, like 2 million messages in like 1 week. And we discovered the power of a new kind of platform where we can interact directly with our fans and with our community. And this was a big move. And for me, as a professional, now I spend 1 hour or 2 per day speaking with my community. And it's always what I'm saying about Web3. Web3 is like a giant slap of customer centricity that you take every morning. Because every day, now, thanks to Discord, I speak with my customers and they say me, this is crazy, great work, or these things you've done, this is total shit. But with no filter. And this is really interesting because we discovered new feelings around the brands, new opinions, new tastes, new things our customers wanted to discover, a new way also to build a project with our community. So this was the first move. And the second move was the mint of our Genesis Pass, which was the golden ticket to enter the experience, giving access to utility. We minted 11,212 Genesis Pass, which were, why this number? Because it's the L1212. L1212 is the original Lacoste polo, it's the code of the polo, the name of our iconic polo, invented 90 years ago by René Lacoste, our founder, who was a tennis player, and he cut the sleeves of his tennis shirt to create a polo to be more comfortable on the court. And we use this code as the number of units of NFTs we minted a year ago. And then, as in the Genesis book, we had few chapters of creation around this project. We first a digital and virtual identity for our community, because each holders were airdropped a PFP of a crocodile with different traits, for sure. So we gave to our crocodiles a digital identity. Then we created merchandising, we created virtual worlds, etc., during a year of creation, but also of learning for the brand, because we did great things, we did huge mistakes, but I think what we did great was to listen on daily basis to our community and to build in a real collective way with our fans.
So obviously, to the production team here at Real Vision, we've got to take that clip of Web3 as a big slap of consumer centricity and make that one of the absolute gems from this one. I think it's absolutely right. And it's actually embodied in the actual experience that your Discord came before your launch, right? So you could have done no mint and no token, no nothing, and you would still be having a direct to consumer always on channel, or not. What do you think? Because I mean, it sounds to me like there's kind of almost two awakenings here. One is what the digital asset brings to the party, but the other is just what having a room with your brand fans in it can do for your brand.
I think, to be honest, we did it in in an order of steps that was necessary, but that was really interesting for the future, because this project was also a success because people wanted to mint some NFT and to earn money at the end. I'm going to be honest, it's not only the magic of a brand. People wanted also to participate to a minting experience and to enter in a new collection with a collectible, and at the end also maybe some value for them. But we created around this a strong experience where the utility is the community, where the utility is the creativity of the community. And I think what we built thanks to this starting point can now be available for other kinds of mindsets, other kinds of communities, and that what we built can be available for fans without NFTs and without like the speculative mindset around these tokens.
Yeah.
Because now we have a platform we can use for regular Lacoste fans if and only if we are able to propose a customer journey that is maybe more friendly than the Web3 customer journey, which is, to be honest, a nightmare for regular customers that want simplicity, that want things really easy to use. And for now, I think the Web3 customer journey has not the maturity and not the easygoing way of Web2 user interface.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, let's definitely come back to that, because we're going to talk a little bit about what it takes to get from where we are to where we want to go, and this is something which is not unique to Lacoste. Also, where I came from with Adidas as well, and any other brand, especially when you start with a Web3 native audience, there's a big question about to get from this to this. How do we get there? But you launched this Genesis Pass. You also talked a little bit about round 2, which I think came a little bit later, right? So there was a few months with the Genesis Pass, and then you decided to actually launch the Emerge part, the PFPs in October, right? What was I think the topic of identity is, I mean, it's a huge iceberg. There's probably 1 billion podcasts just on the topic of identity and the role of digital realms in identity. But it's an interesting choice for a brand to decide. It's not necessarily uncommon now, but it's an interesting choice for a brand to decide to say to its community, we want to give you a unique way of representing yourself online using something inspired by our intellectual property, right? Like, what's the role of a brand in online identity? Like that's something I know that we asked ourselves at Adidas a lot, and Adidas has gone into alt in the same kind of direction. Check out the episode with Vladislav Lazarov from Adidas to dig into that. For Lacoste specifically, what was behind the decision a few months down the line to issue this PFP and identity? And what was the role of your community in deciding to do that?
For us, we have a huge chance at Lacoste is that our crocodile, our logo, is like really, really easy to create a PFP, because we are calling our community crocodiles. In each communication, we say, hi, crocodiles. Internally, also in the company, we use this word because we think we are crocodiles. And giving life to this identity was really obvious for us, because giving a crocodile head to our community was, it was not a question for us. So we created this PFP like in 2 or 3 months. We did it also with our members, our holders, because we went in the design phase. We did some votes around options we proposed to the community. So we were first, I think, the first brand to translate our equity into a PFP and a digital identity. Other kind of projects did it for sure, but as a brand, I think we were the first, and the first also to do a co-creation of the PFP by asking holders of different choices and options of what they've wanted about the PFP. We asked them if they want a 2D or 3D, a realistic crocodile or something like a bit more creative. So the process was really interesting for us. And it was also a way to impact also culture, because in a two ways. First way, our brand culture, because for the first time, we created this crocodile head, which was really like an innovation for us as a brand. And when we posted these PFPs on Instagram, it was like the groundbreaking record of likes for Lacoste.
Yeah.
And never in our history an Instagram post had such results. So it was for us a new way, also a new playground to explore in our Web2 communication, because this is culture and this is our way to feed our centric culture, and also a way to add a stone to this building, this NFT building, who created so much new identities, monkeys, punks, etc., etc. And it was also a way for us to to write our lines to this strong story, and it was also interesting. Maybe we were not the most like relevant design in all the NFT ecosystem, but it was also a balance between NFT requirements and also a way to respect our DNA. And I think what we did is now appreciated by our holders, and some of them don't even care about the floor price or whatever the money they are going to have maybe one day with their PSP. This is their identity on Discord, on Twitter, on Instagram, on their merchandising, because they printed their PFP on their clothing. And this is a really strong way also to create engagement, and we are really happy of what we did with this initiative.
I hope we can get a couple of images of the Emerge collection, and so people can kind of get a feel for it slotted into the video here, because I think anybody who's familiar with the Lacoste brand and who sees that will appreciate that's quite unexpected use of the IP of the crocodile itself. It's a new design language, actually, almost. We're not taking cues from something which has happened before. And what you just said about that being one of the most liked things on Instagram, it's almost like great to take that back into the organization and say, look, there's more than one way that we can see the Lacoste emblem, the Lacoste IP here, and it can have relevance in culture in more than one execution. How was that received? I know that we had a lot of discussions about this when I was still working at Adidas around how much to play with the design philosophy and how much to stick to it, right? In Lacoste, is the kind of the brand language something which is very sacred? Were you given a lot of license to experiment with that? Were you supported in that? Or did you have to kind of shock the organization a little bit and to accept something new? What was the reception?
I think, and it's not only to be to have good work for my management, but I think we have really smart leaders at Lacoste, because they understood that the brand is like a tree where I don't know how you say it in English, in French, le tronc.
Le trunk. Le trunk. Yeah.
The same word. The trunk is something we cannot negotiate with, because we have brand codes. For us, it's the crocodile. Green, also, this is our color. Tennis, our sport. We are not a football, a soccer company, Lacoste, but we are a tennis and golf company. René Lacoste, our founders, and also some campaigns that are in this trunk that needs to be really relevant for our fashion sport positioning, French fashion sport positioning. And we need to elevate this positioning every year and to premiumize. So this is something we cannot negotiate with. We need to
you don't F with that. Yeah,
exactly. But sorry, I'm not good in English around trees. But for
The branches.
Branches is the same word. Thank you. Here we can create new visual playgrounds. We can create new storytelling because around the backbone, we can have new kind of initiatives where we need as a brand to be bold because we need to write new storytellings. We need to also connect with new communities, new audiences, with new way of expressing our brand territory. And this is why Web3 for us was an opportunity to create this new visual storytelling. And I was asked to create things we never saw with the brand. So the field of creativity and the freedom around it was total. And after I know where are the limits with the brand, but these are the kind of operations where we can also play with the crocodile, because the crocodile is maybe one of the playgrounds with the most potential for brands. And I am really lucky to have the opportunity to play with it. But this is something the Web3 allows us to do.
That I think is very interesting, because when you do some pattern spotting between, the different champions that I've spoken to so far in this space, which is many, some of which will be doing podcasts like this, the topic of permission, in fact, not just permission to go and innovate, but literally permission to say, look, this is a new space and a new medium. Let's do something new and use the medium is a very common theme for the things that have been quite successful, actually. And it also points a little bit to, because you mentioned as well, there's also been connections with your core product, right? Allowing people to sort of, you take that identity and express it on what people know Lacoste for, which is you guys make lovely tennis-inspired lifestyle, apparel, and and I'm able to now put my version, like my own thing, on a product created by you. And I think that's a great segue, because there's another round. Round one was the Genesis pass, right? Round two was, okay, we're going to bring some identity to this now as well. Which, like you said, I think it felt like a very logical thing to do, but it also creates that kind of little bit deeper sense of belonging than a generic token would. But then there's the underwater factory, right? And to talk to us a little bit about what holders of this, of your tokens could do in the factory. What is the factory? Where is it? What happens in there? It sounds like an interesting place to hang out below the waterline.
Yeah, and I was talking about culture a few minutes ago, and I think one of the most important cultural moves of the last decade was maybe pop art in New York with another kind of factory, Andy Warhol's factory. And what we wanted to do is how we can create a collective of builders underwater in our project, where they can also challenge and write a new kind of future for the brand. So we created this factory, this underwater factory, which are private channels for holders in our Discord, where we animate our holders into creativity fields that are going to challenge a bit the brand. So this underwater factory is also animated by a character named Henri de Gaillette. Gaillette is the street where our factory in France, in Troyes, which is a city in France, is located. And Henri de Gaillette is our underwater factory CEO, and he gives missions to different departments: the fashion department, the content department, the virtual world department, where our crocodiles, our holders, are creating the future of the brand. For example, in the fashion department, we created a capsule collection of fashion. So a hoodie, a polo, a cap, a t-shirt, with an underwater design and an underwater branding that are going to be only available for our holders. But we created with holders by giving them access to our creative studio at Lacoste. Our designers went on Discord, had conversations with our community. The community voted around the design, the color, the kind of logo, etc., etc. And we produced these kind of pieces, and they are today, or the day we are recording, we are going to be live also in 5 minutes So it's funny to have a conversation with you right now around this topic of the opening of the underwater shop where only our holders will buy their creation in the underwater factory. So this is the first example. Second example is the content department. You mentioned René Lacoste, our founder, and the crocodile a few minutes ago. Lacoste has a crocodile because the crocodile was the nickname of René Lacoste. His nickname was the crocodile because he went to play a tennis game in Boston 100 years ago, in August 1923 in Boston, play the Davis Cup against Australia. And in Boston, he was walking in the streets a day before the game with his captain, his Davis Cup captain. And he told his captain in front of a shop, see this crocodile suitcase. If I win the game, you will offer me. And a journalist in Boston heard the story and gave to René Lacoste the nickname of the crocodile because he was really strong and full of tenacity around the court. And this nickname created a logo. We were the first brand with a sport brand with a logo at Lacoste. And this crocodile was on millions of people around the world a century after. And this story, I'm not only telling you this story to do a Lacoste branding with you guys, but we told this story to our holders and we make them in the content department in our underwater factory, create the visual of this story with artificial intelligence, with Midjourney, to give a new birth a century after to this story with our technology of the 21st century, to tell this story to other crocodiles around the world on our e-commerce, our digital flagship, in some editorials around this story. And this is how we connect the dots between a community full of creativity using today's technology to tell and to create new forms, new fields of storytelling around our legacy, around our DNA, and around our Lacoste story.
So the reason why I think this factory part is such an important part of the storyline here is because if you rewind to the beginning of this episode and you talk about why you wanted to do this, play, co-creation, a horizontal relationship with your community, the factory is really the manifestation of that. And anybody who's working in a brand right now, who's thinking about what might it look like, you got to get in that channel and see what's going on in there, because I really do think that you start to believe it when you see it. And when you see it connected back to your core business, which is there is product, which has now been co-created with that community, which is going to be on a virtual store, which is, I believe you access it through your e-commerce site, right? In fact, I've been to the homepage, you scroll down the homepage, the summer online store is there. And I know you did this with I forget the name of the agency, but it's really, really great work. Imperia, that's right. Mm-hmm. And, you can go upstairs, you can go downstairs as a mini game, but the basement level, the underwater level is just reserved for those token holders. And that's where you'll be buying products created by this community. That's kind of a full circle experience, bringing it a little bit more back to a special experience that your core business can deliver.
Yeah, and with really strong results, because all these virtual experiences on e-com, they are interesting because they produce new visual storytelling. It's a new way also to discover the brand. But at the end, people want to buy on e-com in a regular way, and these are good videos for investors' days. But at the end, is not changing the face of the world in terms of performance. But here in this experience, we added two features that created a strong engagement. First, a play to earn feature where you can play to a video game in the underwater room that you can access only with your underwater card, which is our new Genesis Pass. And you can also access it with your Club Lacoste, the loyalty program login. And here you can play with us and earn things. And the second thing is that you have exclusive products for the underwater community that you can buy in this shop. And these two features created a really, really strong traffic and repeated traffic with a strong engagement around the experience. So really interesting for us, because when we have the virtual experience, but with the relevant features and the relevant value proposition in terms of exclusivity, the figures are really, really interesting. And it's not only a nice to see experience, it's also a nice, really interesting experience in terms of conversion rate on the e-com. And this is really interesting for us at the end in terms of business.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, how many people must there be focusing on optimizing every last piece of the commerce experience for every 0.1% of conversion, right? And I mean, I'm guessing that, you know, that the numbers side of that stuff is probably something that you need to sort of keep to yourself. But if you can give us an idea of just like how surprised were you with what you saw in those results? Obviously, you had a hypothesis that you'd create an impact here, but how did the results compare to your expectation in creating this special members only access that's kind of facilitated by the underwater program?
But I can give on the global underwater program.
Yeah, you talked about conversion, for example, in the commerce for holders. Yep.
Two things on the virtual experience. Honestly, at the beginning, I had not any expectations around turnover, and I was quite surprised about the turnover, because it was. I can't give you the exact number, but it's like it was like a week of turnover of regular Lacoste shop. Only in this experience with not the most easy access to product experience. So really interesting in terms of turnover and in terms of traffic and time spent. And then most generally on the underwater experience, the underwater community, what is really impressive is the way we can quickly convert prospect and not prospect to real active customers. Some of the holders were aware about the brand, but not some big customers, not really active customers. And some of them become some of our best customers. And when you see the figures, the way that we convert people into good customers through the experience and through the conversation is really, really impressive. And I'm working on social media, I'm working on CRM. So I think I can see also all the levers we have to create frequency, lifetime value, etc. Web3 have some results that are really, really impressive. But the problem is that the scale of Web3 for now is small. For us, it's like 6,000, 6,000 or 7,000 holders. It's good, but the real question for us is how we can now use this proof of success we created with underwater at scale, with not only 10,000 people, but 100,000 or maybe one day 1 million. And this is something we are working on with a better customer journey, maybe a more inclusive experience, because often the Web3 experiences are really complicated for regular guys. Wording is complicated. Mechanics are complicated. Some storytellings and some assets are really, really crypto related. So these are things we were working on to engage more people and to create a new experience, but at scale.
Yeah. Like, I think, and you're certainly not alone in that journey, I think, right? Especially when your experience, delivering the experience to those people and sort of seeing the limitations, and that is a really widespread, understood narrative here. Like, Web3 UX generally sucks, Web 2.5, etc. Right? But the thing that every brand marketer should really kind of latch onto there is, in this group of brand fans, right? Because amongst your crocodiles, right, who now have an identity, who have another reason to belong, another reason to contribute, It's not like you're paying them either, right? Like it's just you're giving a degree of access, which is sharing your brand's infrastructure and your IP in a way which is only possible through this. With them, you can create a differentiated experience which captures some value that comes along with that blogging. So when you said, we want to co-create with people, there's also a sense of sharing the fruit of that co-creation with this community as well. Now the question is, well, you know what? Like, forget Web3 and forget underwater for a minute. Just take all the consumers for the brand. There's always some kind of, pyramid shape when you look at lifetime value, right? So, the Web3 lot at the top, the crocodiles might be like, the 0.1 or maybe even smaller percent in terms of the number of consumers and extremely valuable. But maybe in your regular Lacoste loyalty program, the first 5 or 10% of the most engaged and loyal consumers, there may still be headroom to take some of these learnings and sprinkle it amongst them. Because probably, this kind of stuff might not be for 100% of consumers. Some people might just come for the odd polo every now and again. Don't want an account. Thank you very much. Just love the polo. Just give me the 1212, L1212. But that 5 to 10% feels like where it might be where the sweet spot could be. How do you guys think about who these learnings might be relevant for amongst your consumer base? How big do you want to take it and how fast?
But when we run surveys, quantitative or qualitative surveys with our best customers, and we ask them, what do you want with us? What are the features you want in the loyalty program? Do you want gifts? Do you want discounts? Do you want invitations to Roland Garros finals? Do you want to play with us? The first item, when we ask them randomly, first item is, I want to create with you guys. I want to see what is behind the curtain. I want to interact with you guys. And when we position and we propose them what we do to Web3 in a more like Web2 perspective, a Web2 journey, this is something that like 95% of them want in the experience. So we totally believe that for best customers, more engaged customers, these experiences are really, really relevant. And that at the end, we are building a membership value proposition with a strong reward model, because also people want access to discount, want access to gifts. This is something really classic, and we need to be better at this. But also, they want also to be rewarded for more qualitative interactions with the brand and a play to earn, a create to earn, a talk to earn program where the experience around the brand is not only based on buying the brand, but also on living the brand in a true Lacoste lifestyle. And this is what we want to build. And when we ask our best customers, we think this direction can be the good one. So we are going to invest on it, but we need to find what are the good platforms to build on, because right now we are working on Ethereum. People are using dollars or euros. We are working on Discord. People are on Instagram or TikTok. We are using wallets. People have iPhones or Samsung or other kind of devices. So how can we build on the most relevant platform to scale? And this is something I don't have for now the question, because today I'm still balanced between the conviction that the Web3 ecosystem is going to build strongly on maybe more inclusive platforms, but also I think the Web3 recipes of horizontality, of new narratives and new storytellings and new virtual playgrounds, and this technology will maybe more infusing, more be used on Web2 platform, but only on pure Web3 platform. So this is something I don't know your opinion on that, but this is the big question, and it's important to find quickly the answer. But because if we want to scale, I think, and I'm repeating myself, but this customer journey issue is maybe the most important.
Yeah. No, I think any practitioner in the space is now seeing that in the things that we also build for communities and fans. Just down to like, how would you log into this thing? Like just the most basic of elements of the experience is always a question. But the view is to really include people as much as possible. And in general, the trade-off that I think we're making is how religiously to stick to the concepts of decentralization and sovereignty in an experience, because it's kind of, there's the voice of it's not Web3 unless it's, a digital asset in your wallet. And, the original philosophy behind Bitcoin, around sovereignty of assets. But on the other hand, you can give people, ownership of something which you take care of for them. It's still inside your walled garden. And the blockchain and NFT aspect of it is really just providing the rails to deliver the verifiable scarcity of all of that stuff economically. And eventually we figure out, well, how do we do things like, encourage people to take this asset themselves and use it elsewhere, or be able to identify that this account is holding this asset with Lacoste and therefore should have special privileges in one of your brand partners. It's one of the whole benefits of doing this thing on an open blockchain. So those seem to be some of the things that we sort of decide to sort of trade off to try and figure out how you get more and more people using it. But you started this conversation by saying that like Web3 was just one paintbrush available to create that sense of belonging and that co-creation and the rest of that. So blending that into the toolkit feels like, from a brand perspective, absolutely the right way to go. I'm going to now maybe just move us on a little bit to, let's talk about how the sausage got made. You've been giving us actually really good, authentic and candid nuggets throughout this. But one of the things that I'd like you to shed a bit of light on is, compared to October 2021 until now, right? When you first saw the observation and were deciding which are the best bits you want to take for Lacoste and moving forward. So how has the team changed over that time? What kind of people or skills did you have to bring into this effort or collect from the organization together? How's it all set up?
First, before expertise and relevant skills, we needed people because the amount of work around Web3 is crazy. And when we launched the project, we had our social media director working only himself with agencies, external agencies around this project. So the amount of work for him was crazy. And thanks to him, because he made an amazing job, honestly, by handling a new topic for the company with external teams, with a really relevant approach, in my sense, I think. So he did a great job, and he now built a new team with 4 people internally in the company, with skills around Web3 for sure, so previous experiences around Web3, and also gaming and esports, which are fields we want to also to investigate at Lacoste. And now we have, I think, the good amount of people in the company to handle the project, also to have strategic skills to have the long-term vision inside the company, and then to have the right balance of workload between what we are capable to do at Lacoste and what we need also to outsource through external agencies.
Got it. And the social media side of things, I guess, is really to sort of manage the Discord and all of the real-time interaction that you now have with this community, along with the messaging on other touch points and things like that. But are there any other resources that you have to put on this to sort of, manage the program, to manage any kind of agencies or support that you have, like deciding what to do next with the underwater card, which is the latest iteration of the program? I'm guessing there might be people from your loyalty program, from other core parts of your team who are kind of maybe somehow networked into this thing. Is it dedicated resources, or do you kind of run a network model like that?
No, it's like a network, but for a lot of people in the company, this was really new. For example, when I'm going to see my my colleagues in the legal department, explaining them I want to create a new thing, which is the underwater card, which is a dynamic NFT that you connect to a website named The Mission, where you participate to different missions around creativity, around gaming. You earn points in a leaderboard. At the end, two things. The best people in the leaderboard have rewards. And also your NFT is more rare because if you have 200 points directly through the blockchain, the NFT is going to be more rare. And when you see the ranking on OpenSea, it's dynamically changing depending of your implication or your performance in the project. When I say this to you, you're a marketing guy, so yeah, it makes sense. It's fun, we need to test it. I say this to my colleagues at the legal department. This is something where they need to work on it because this is new, based on blockchain, on all countries, not only limited to a specific country. In Ethereum, with sometimes maybe not an end date. This is really new for them. Same thing for finance. We never accepted before this project people to buy a product with cryptocurrencies.
Yeah.
So how do we deal wallets? How do we deal compliance? How do we work with accounting? How do we do VAT around this? And everything was this project created new expertises, new skills in the company in different departments. And this was really, really interesting because for every one working around this project, it was also a kind of innovation vertical in his job. So really fun also because really interesting for them because not the day-to-day work they are doing.
Yeah. I have to say, when we talk about how the sausage is made, we really need to talk about those people because, we had the same thing also at Adidas in Q4 in just the weeks before the launch. Some pretty interesting discussions with tax, with treasury, with legal about the flow of goods and the flow of money and how this was all going to work and how we are going to manage our currency risk and does this appear on the balance sheet and what partners do we need to work with to, move between fiat and crypto. These things like, if there's a number one piece of advice for anybody in a brand out there, get them on board at the beginning because it's going to take some time, absolutely from the outset to get the heads around it.
Completely, because the technology is really easy. This is for me the first time I'm working on a tech project with the good time to market. Everything is launched on time. The cost is honestly okay. And when you work on the other side on like a new loyalty program, 2 years, 100 people in the company, 6 months delays because these are corporate networks, corporate technology with like interactions with all the systems. Here, the technology is really, really easy. But the legal and the finance part, the compliance part is maybe the biggest issue around Web3 because everything is new. Half of the things has no laws in most of the countries. And for people internally, these are new topics. And often these guys have already a lot of work. So it's really, really hard for them to discover new fields because they have their timetable is really full. So
perhaps, but I'm guessing you'll have had some excitement and some resistance in the mix, depending on who the individual's roles there. But in that case, I guess part of your role then has also been to kind of inspire to mobilize those resources when it's not necessarily something which was part of their quarterly objectives at the beginning. Like it kind of maybe emerges as part of the emerging innovation plan here. But it sounds to me like you do have space at Lacoste to do that, right? Like, I mean, you mentioned before, you didn't really have to fight the organization. On the contrary, there was a spirit of find me new ways to interact, find me new ways to do this. So did you actually find that, on the legal, tax and treasury side, that spirit was there as well?
We have a chance to work with, to develop this project in an amazing company in terms of culture because we are in a company of with a real collective spirit. And it's a true value in the company. And we are a company of innovation and a big amount of freedom regarding our industry. For example, of this project, we presented like 1 or 2 times in COMEX. And after, the freedom was quite total. No,
COMEX is like your executive committee, is it? It's like a governing body.
Yeah, it's our CEO and like the 5 or 6 executive vice presidents. And honestly, it was like a nice way also to present the project, to answer questions, but the trust they gave us was really total. So it was also important for us to be grateful for the trust and to deliver something performant and relevant for the brand. But this shows the spirit we have in the company, where when we think that something will fulfill the vision in a relevant way for the brand, we are in a long term and not only a short term thing, because these are things we don't want to do at Lacoste. We are ready to invest in it, invest in money, invest in time, invest in people, and invest in trust. And this is something, always I have a question: how did you manage to do something like out of the box in a corporate company, like working billions of turnovers in 100 countries? I'm always answering that at Lacoste it was quite easy, honestly, and this was not the topic. It was most difficult to work on legal topics or finance topics because this was new for the company, than to convince internally that this was something important to do in a long-term perspective for the brand.
That's so interesting. There's a sort of expression about, it's, I think, a general expression, not a corporate innovation one, around when to ask forgiveness and when to ask for permission.
Right.
And I certainly know that, like, from my time at Adidas, that knowing when to make that choice around, when to let something bubble up and then when to make it visible is a key choice in giving innovation topics the right oxygen at the right time. And it sounds to me like at Lacoste, you had the oxygen you needed from the very beginning, which I think is a very privileged position, actually, and one of the patterns that you see in brands which have been successful in this space. Now, you said a little bit earlier, we also made a ton of mistakes along the way, right? If you could go back to BB 12 months ago and say, here's something I would definitely advise, like, knowing what I know now, here's something that I would do differently, what would it be?
For many things. First, I think we understood too late the specific communication needs around Web3. For example, we didn't create a dedicated Twitter account a year ago. We did it like 2 months ago. So in terms of performance, this was not the best move. We were a bit late also in creating merchandising for the community. We had the first move with a design what was not the best one. And I think maybe we should from the beginning find a collaborative partner around Web3, like Adidas did with Yuga. I think maybe we should have work something about more collaborations from the beginning. But also, we did it our way, and I think in a real singular way. What we did was always unique. The underwater card, the Genesis Pass, the way also we interact with the community. For example, yesterday, I spent 2 hours in AMA in an Ask Me Anything session with my community. 2 hours asking questions, answering questions, no taboo. Everything was answered on the team, what we are doing with the money of the mint, what are the long-term perspective, what football team is my favorite, etc., etc., etc. No, but and to be honest, we are totally linked to our community on daily basis on the channels on Discord, on Ask Me Anything sessions. And this is something we did well. And we did iterations around the project thanks to our community, because we understood from the beginning that the floor depends of people from the team being on the floor. We need to interact with the community to build together, because this is Web3. Web3 is connecting is building together. And this is something I think we did well. And we are going to pursue, because this is fun, this is challenging, and I think this is how we can be creative as a brand and also as a professional team.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's also for sure a common thread that you hear throughout, is get ready for a different style of communication. And actually the immediate impact that you see when you humanize the brand with your community by being a person, not a brand, right? Like where else can you experience the people working at the brand except by actually being an employee of the brand, right? To be able to speak to the person in charge of the program and ask them whatever, when that, normally we're not used to that, right? We're carrying the weight of the whole brand on our shoulders, and it's just like every communication is very tightly controlled. Every post is timetabled. Like there's a transmission of communication from a centralized brand to consumers, and we hope they're going to come to the website and sign up and buy stuff. What you're doing is humanizing Lacoste for all of those people and making that feel like a horizontal relationship. But it does take, it's emotional labor as well, right? I mean, that's 2 hours of your time as well. It's something which now needs to be factored into your life. And any Web3 founder, corporate or otherwise, I think will say that's a really big investment as well. You give a lot in order to be able to create that connection.
And it's true. And you give a lot of time, a lot of energy, and a lot of emotions also. Because sometimes when you work like 70 hours a week, you spend your nights speaking with the community, and at the end you have like a small technical bug, or something late, and guys are, what are you doing at Lacoste? Are you lazy guys? At the end, it's a bit hard to hear. But this is also the challenging part and the interest for me of the project. And as you say, it's humanizing the brand, because for our customers speaking with us, understanding also how we work as a brand and also as a company is really interesting also for them to learn around our industry. Yesterday I had the question, can we do a capsule collection around footwear at Lacoste with underwater? I want it for Christmas. I told the guy, we can do it on the paper, but if you want it on Christmas, it's complicated, because if I want to create...
Which year?
Voilà. No, mais if you want it to design from scratch of a new Lacoste sneaker, it's like 1.5 years of design, of looking for materials, testing quality, looking for suppliers, etc., 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 etc. And this is not something we are in. And this was like an information for them.
I remember, because I joined Adidas in the supply chain, right? Because I have a background in manufacturing, and I joined a consumer goods company in sporting goods, because it was crazy to me that even a t-shirt, the first time that you think about that t-shirt to when it comes to life is like a year, maybe 8 months or whatever. Things are a little faster now, but footwear is an engineered product. It's an engineered product, and it needs to be on your foot, and it needs to last, right? So, and the idea of like a new tooling, I was like, what the hell is a tooling? Like that is the mold in which you inject the rubber to make the actual sole of the shoe. That there's economics around whether to do that and what techniques to use. So I think actually the pulling back the curtain part, it's really important what you said about it's a two-way street. I'm not just here to sort of take shit from a community who are like, when this and when that. There's an understanding and an appetite to get behind the curtain and figure out, well, how does this business work anyway? And what can I ask of this company? What can I propose that can be feasible? But yeah, it does. I remember the first time that you experience FUD inside a brand is a bit of a wake up call, right? It's a bit of a, oh my God, wow, that was a rough day in the office when you're answering directly to your community, and some things seem reasonable and some things are just like expectations you never thought would exist.
Yeah, and I remembered when a year ago, when we launched the Discord, we announced the Mint, and everyone were asking, we want an AMA, we want to Ask Me Anything session. So we did the Ask Me Anything session, and I remember I was in front of this computer in the meeting room at Lacoste, where I saw in a second 1,000 of PFPs appearing on my Discord board. And I was doing like a press conference in front of 1,000 guys. And this is really new because we are not used to do this. We are not used to...
With no script, right?
Yeah.
With no brand messaging, with no PR team telling you, okay, so Ben, these are the things that we can talk about and these are the things that we can't talk about. It's definitely a very different MO, but you've been really clear about the flip side and the benefits of doing that. I just, because I know I need to be respectful of your time as well, and we've been talking a lot about some of the things to brace for if you want to bring your brand into the space. Let's talk about what your dream for the program is for the next, let's say, 12 to 24 months. Like, do you live in a world where you like talk about your ambition for 2025 with what you've started with Underwater?
But for me, the dream is to build more and more bridges between this project and the regular Lacoste brand and the regular Lacoste company also. Because, I saw yesterday one of our holder wrote me. He was engaged in a permanent contract. He's in one of our shops in France. And I told him, wow, we are colleagues right now. And this guy is like 20 years old and this is his first job. And thanks to this project, now maybe he will have a career in retail at Lacoste and I think a nice future for them. And how this is what we want to build is how we can create value for people with this project, creative value, make them to learn new creative skills, to express what they have in their head thanks to the brand and to nourish the global brand creativity. So I want also to create more and more content for our regular Web2 channel thanks to Web3. Also create new playgrounds for the brand to express this crocodile in many, many, many different ways. And then at the end, what I will dream, because we are talking about dreams, is to have in 2 years and one and only brand program with in it a reward model and also a creative platform where it's one and only loyalty program, but based on both transactional relationships and creative relationships, qualitative relationships, in something available for all kind of customers from like 18 years old to 80 years old, because it's easy to use, easy to understand and easy to play with. And this is something we want to develop. But I think the path is quite long. But the impact on the brand culture is so high. But this is something we want to invest time and money on it, because I have a conviction it's going to work.
Do you get asked to deliver a certain amount of revenue or LTV lift at this moment, or is it really purely around just bring me new ways to engage and elevate the brand experience?
No, the return return on investment on this project is more on marketing KPIs like activity in the community, activity on Discord. These are the KPIs. We are doing turnover. We did turnover with the Mint last year. As you all know, royalties are not right now the best source of revenue for many reasons. And we also sell some dedicated underwater clothing to our community. So these are revenues. But at the end, what we want to do is to manage KPIs of activity. But on the other hand, what I need to do, and is to scale this project because, and I'm transparent with the community and also transparent internally. We are not going also to invest for years time and money on a community of 5,000 people.
Yeah.
We are doing it because we are convinced that we can scale this kind of experiences to more people. And this is what we need to do because for now, Web3 is still a niche, a small community with different mindsets and purposes. And we need to find also audiences more relevant for us and with better scale. So this is, I think, our challenge for the next 12 months.
Yeah. But to be transparent about that upfront, I think is also really important because there could be an expectation of just entertaining this small group for the next little while here. And you always have to figure out how to look after all your children, the ones that have been there from the beginning and the ones that you will bring in as well. I can see, I think it's a very exciting path, not a trivial one, but a very exciting path. But here's a few things which are super clear from this conversation, Ben, as we wrap up, which is, the approach that you've taken, I think also by virtue of your role and your responsibility in Lacoste this is very much about just bringing the medium of Web3 and the attitude of Web3 to take a very consumer first approach, always at the heart of this thing. This is a new way to drive engagement, have that eye-level conversation and elevate the brand experience, which is what the brand has been trying to do. But it's also clear just in the way that you've spoken, you're in it for the long term as well. Like this is something which is just the last year, if you were to have a documentary of this, would just be chapter 1 of the documentary. Maybe there'll be one day. Who knows? Maybe some footage from this will appear in that documentary. But the other thing which is super clear is that it takes a certain type of commitment to drive that, right? A certain type of open-mindedness, both from a corporate culture perspective, but also from the team, and especially yourself being responsible for that, to be open to what you can learn from your community and to take a little risk, with and be courageous in opening up the brand's infrastructure and opening up your time, your energy in ways that normally is not par for the course for corporate employment or for corporate innovation. So Lacoste, I think, is very lucky to have you in the seat. And we're very excited to see what comes next with the underwater card. Tell us a little bit more about where people can find you, anywhere you want to direct people to learn more about what you're doing with underwater.
Well, to learn more, we have an underwater website, underwater.lacoste.com. And also, if you want to learn more, you join the Lacoste Discord, Lacoste Underwater Discord, and you ping BB. It's me, and I will answer you and give you information with pleasure. And then we have also a Twitter, Lacoste Underwater Twitter, if you want to access the last news around the project.
So we'll make sure that those are all in the show notes here as well for you guys who are watching here. Ben, I think the last thing is to just say a deep thank you for taking us on the tour, for your candor and authenticity as well in recounting the story. Hopefully this has given anybody out there working in brands inspiration to really go for it. And look forward to seeing what comes next for Lacoste. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, and thank you for the quality of the conversation. It was really, really nice for me to be with you this afternoon. So thank you for the invitation.
Well, I think some of the questions come from a little bit of hard learnings from myself as well. So it's always good to speak to champions of innovation. Ben, thank you so much. And guys, I look forward to sharing the next episode with you as and when we come out with that.
Hey visionaries, thank you for tuning in. For more free crypto content like this, head over to realvision.com/crypto. You'll get early access to the most brilliant minds in the space to cut through the noise, get in-depth analysis, and get you ahead of the curve with unbiased insights.